So, shalom everyone. We're not going to talk about the history of art today, but I just wanted to say that these are a bunch of pictures that I found on Google um, of all kinds of cave paintings, and I just wanted to show the different dyes, not so much the actual paintings, because the idea of dyeing is under the same category of kotev, because they didn't only write on the wooden boards like we talked about numbers and letters, but they also decorated the curtains for the Mishkan. So this is a almost like a cut through, like as if they pushed each curtain further. This was a top curtain, and it was uh, Yeriot Izim, the skins of goats with their original hair on them. This was Orot Elim Damim, so skins of rams that were reddened or dyed with red. This, I believe, is linen, and I don't remember that being in the list, but this is the Tachash, and again, it's just multicolored, but there was lots of dyeing for the Mishkan. Um, and so let's try to understand this. So, tzovea is a melacha with the objective of making something more beautiful. In the Mishkan, the woolen threads of the curtains were dyed indigo, royal purple, and scarlet. Even though the melacha of kotev can be described as dyeing a page with letters, there is a difference between kotev and tzovea. The goal of writing is to express an idea, even when the writing is a picture of a house or a tree. The goal is still to express an idea, and that is how one transgresses kotev. In contrast, the goal of dying is not to express an idea, but to beautify an item. Therefore, one who creates a meaningful image on paper or on a wall transgresses kotev, and if he then colors it to beautify it, he transgresses tzovea. What's amazing to me is that we just learned this morning with Benedict about the get, that it has to be written on a certain kind of material and it has to be permanent. And we just discussed that yesterday and last week about how permanent writing is. And so that is the difference. So let's say I wrote a letter and left it empty, and then I wanted to dye it with a different color. That was also mentioned in the Mishnah this morning, where it says kankantom and komus and sikra. Sikra is, I believe, a dark blue or red, and then there's other colors. Therefore, it is prohibited by Torah law to paint, color, or dye walls, cabinets, utensils, fabrics, or clothing on Shabbat. The specific color is irrelevant. Any color that beautifies it is prohibited by Torah law. And again, that is a permanent color. Even if the paint is colorless and merely adds glaze or shine, it is prohibited because shine is considered color. So specifically about nail polish, even if it's a clear, it is still prohibited under this melacha of tzovea. It is prohibited by Torah law to paint a wall even if it was previously painted with the same or different color. It is also prohibited by Torah law to polish shoes, even if the polish is neutral or colorless. It is prohibited by Torah law because it makes the shoes shine. If the polish is a cream that is spread on the shoes, then one who applies it also transgresses memareach, which we talked about, like soap. If the polish improves the leather, then one transgresses me'abed as well, which is related to the making the skin usable. Even if the polish was applied before Shabbat, one may not buff the shoes off on Shabbat to make them shine, because shine is considered color. However, if there is dust on the shoes, one may gently remove it with a rag. So I'll just stop here for a second. When we were in the army, we were told that when the people see us with our shoes not shined, they tend to believe that we are a little bit more lax and not so tight in terms of security, etc. So our commanders tried to claim that we're supposed to shine them on Shabbat, but the chief rabbinate of the army brought down a rule because they got this question from many different soldiers, and it was ruled that you're allowed to, just like Rabbi Melamed said now, to remove it with a rag, and that itself brought it back to at least decent looking, so that it looked like as if you shined it, but you didn't, and so both objectives were kept. But the sanctity of Shabbat, of not dyeing shoes, and the security for the soldiers to make sure that people knew that they are on guard 24/7. So, the Torah prohibition of tzoveh is limited to permanent dyes. If the color will come off by itself within a short time, the prohibition is rabbinic. So again, back to Benedict's class this morning, if the get was written with mei perot, with fruit juice, that is not considered permanent, and therefore the get is not kosher. And so again, another amazing connection. Maybe we should learn the halachot that are related to each Mishnah. It's interesting that it worked out that way, and there's no coincidence as far as I'm concerned. So if the color will come off by itself within a short time, the prohibition is rabbinic. We saw yesterday that you're not allowed to write in the fog on a window. And I'm not sure what the difference is, but that is kotev. This is tzoveh. So if you put like if you poured juice, I guess on a window or on something, that would not be permanent. And if one's hands became stained with fruit, blood, or any other substance, the chatchila, you should first wash his hands and only afterwards dry them with a towel to avoid dyeing the towel. And similarly, if juice spills on tablecloth, then the one who wipes it off should be careful not to drag the juice along the cloth, as that will dye the tablecloth, even though such dyeing dirties the tablecloth rather than beautifying it, and also that is not our intention. We actually want the opposite. Those who are stringent maintain that since it is normal to dye such a cloth, it is rabbinically prohibited. In times of need, one may be lenient, since many poskim say that adding color in a way that dirties the object is not prohibited. And since bandages or tissues are not normally dyed, they may be used to clean up blood or other colored substances. And when there's risk of life, obviously, we're not concerned about the bandage being dyed, because once we have to change it, we throw it out. We don't keep it for any purpose. Since the color added dirties material that is not normally dyed, there is no prohibition. Last but not least, everyone agrees that there's no issue of staining the hands or mouth when eating strawberries or other brightly colored food, because this is not the normal way to color skin, and any such coloring is actually dirtying the skin. However, one may not put on makeup, as we explained earlier. If a toilet has an automatic toilet bowl cleaner that colors the water with every flush, poskim disagree whether one may flush the toilet on Shabbat. Some maintain that since people are interested in the water being colored, it is rabbinically prohibited, even though the color is present only briefly. Others maintain that since the primary goal is to clean the toilet and the color is just incidental, one may flush the toilet. In practice, it is preferable to use a clear toilet bowl cleaner. However, if one finds himself in a place where the cleaning material is colored, they may flush the toilet. And so it's not just making up a stringency, it's actually a concern, but again, uh, we are allowed to do it. And if you remember, when we were talking about preparing food, we said that you are allowed to add concentrated juice to water, even though you're coloring it, because there's no such thing as coloring food. It's not, your purpose is not to color the food, your purpose is to enjoy the taste better. Um, and we're not talking about like food coloring, which like when you make a cake and you want it to be green, or that is prohibited on Shabbat, because you're not supposed to be making a cake anyway. But in terms of adding something to like another substance, meaning if I take juice and put it on into water, or if I put salad dressing that has color onto salad, etc., that is not considered coloring, and we have no It's definitely not permanent, and therefore it is permitted. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I also wanted to explain the colors I